I never imagined locking up a playboy would lead to a millionaire doctor's heartbreaking truth. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day I found myself standing before a locked door, heart racing, palms sweaty, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. In that moment, I felt like I was in a twisted dream. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed in my ears, creating a heavy weight of anticipation that clung to my chest. His name was Jake, the infamous doctor who seemed to have it all. A charming smile that could light up the darkest room, a silver sports car that roared like a beast, and a reputation that made women swoon. But this time, locked away in a sterile room with nothing but the echo of my footsteps, I felt a pulse of something darker lurking just beneath the surface. He was hiding something. I could see it in his frantic eyes, the way they darted around, searching for an escape, a way out of the tangled web he had woven. I knew the whispers, the nights of wild parties, the heartbreaks left in his wake. I had heard the rumors, but I couldn't allow myself to believe they were true. Not about someone like him. I remembered my sister, Sarah, warning me to stay away from the chaos that was Jake. She was right, of course, but something about him pulled me in, like a moth drawn to a flame. Had I been foolish to take that leap? The taste of desperation hung in the air as I thought about the moments we shared, the stolen glances, the laughter that now felt like a joke. Then there was the call from a friend in a panic. "You won't believe what's happening. Jake was just caught in a scandal." Each word hung heavy, making the air around me thick. Suddenly, everything crashed down. The laughter, the nights spent dreaming of a future that felt so far away. It all faded into a haunting silence. I gripped the cold handle of the door, ready to face the truth, whatever it was. My heart raced. I could feel it pounding, almost choking me with fear. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and stepped into a world of chaos. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room was dimly lit, cluttered with the remnants of a life I thought I understood. Papers lay scattered on the floor, evidence of a struggle beyond my comprehension. The cool air felt charged with tension, thickening with the weight of unspoken words. I scanned the space, half anticipating Jake to emerge with that charming grin, but all I found was emptiness. In that haunting silence, my mind raced, replaying snippets of our conversations, simple moments warped now by the shadow of what I had just learned. I could hear Sarah's words clearly. "He's trouble. Don't get involved." My heart ached as I realized I had ignored the warnings in favor of a fantasy ID built around him, a fantasy now in ruins. "Jake?" I called out, my voice trembling as it echoed against the sterile walls. No response, just the low hum of the overhead lights buzzing ominously. The fears of his complications nagged at me relentlessly. Had I been merely captivated by the surface allure of his life? What lay beneath that charming facade? What secret had ignited the scandal? Just as I turned to leave, footsteps echoed from down the corridor. My pulse quickened at the prospect of confronting him. But when the door swung open, it wasn't Jake who stood before me. Instead, it was a nurse, her expression a blend of concern and sympathy. "I am sorry, but you can't be in here," she said softly, her eyes flicking toward the scattered papers. "He needs time, some space to deal with this. Oh, you know what's happening?" I pressed, desperate for information that could make sense of the chaos. She hesitated, her brow creased with a mix of empathy and caution. "There have been allegations, serious accusations about his treatment methods. It's not just about his personal life. Lives are at stake." Hearing those words sent a shock through me. Lives. Suddenly, the scandal felt far more sinister than a mere playboy's misconduct. It hinted at something deeper, darker. "But he's not like that," I found myself saying, even as doubt crept in. "He's a good doctor. He saved lives." The nurse's gaze softened. "Sometimes, the ones who save lives the most have shadows too. Just be careful. Remember, the truth can be a fragile thing." With that, she slipped away, leaving me alone in the aftermath of uncertainty. I leaned against the wall, fighting against the tide of confusion and hurt. For every moment of connection I shared with Jake, I felt as if a new layer of betrayal was surfacing, tarnishing those memories. Yet, beneath it all, there still flickered a glimmer of hope, a hope that perhaps I could help him, save him from whatever darkness clouded his world. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Sarah. I heard about Jake. Please be careful. I'm coming over. Her protective nature made my heart sink. Did she really think I was incapable of handling this? But even as I felt anger bubble within me, I couldn't disregard the knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Maybe inviting her in wasn't such a bad idea. I needed a lifeline, someone to keep my head above water as I waded through this storm. Before I could respond to her text, I heard voices growing nearer. Panic gripped me once again as I realized they were Jake's colleagues. Whatever happened next, I needed to be ready, for the unraveling of Jake's world had only just begun. As the door creaked open, the faces of his fellow doctors appeared tense, drawn, burdened. They turned their gazes to me, and in that vulnerable moment, I saw it. They carried a collective sorrow, an understanding that something irreversible was happening within their ranks. One of them began. My heart raced. Would they tell me the truth? The truth that could shatter everything I thought I knew about Jake? The air grew heavier, the weight of their unspoken fears wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. We need to talk, and just like that, the cliff I was teetering on became a precipice. Would I lose Jake forever, along with the world I had just begun to care for? The meeting room felt cold, as if it conspired with the forces outside to shut away all warmth and comfort. My heart raced, caught in a rapid heartbeat that echoed off the gray walls. Each of the doctors stood with a quiet, unyielding intensity, their eyes burdened with secrets untold. The lead doctor spoke again, his voice steady yet unyielding. We need your help. This is about Jake. We were worried. Worried. The word hung between us like a heavy stone, stirring apprehension within me. Worried? About what? Their collective sigh cut through the air, heavy with concern. One of the younger doctors, his brow knotted yet sincere, spoke up. He's been isolating himself. It's been building for some time. You mean a lot to him. But he's in trouble. Trouble. Each syllable struck me like an arrow. What do you mean? What kind of trouble? The woman beside him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, stepped forward. We think he might be on the verge of doing something irreversible. You've seen the papers and we're afraid that if he doesn't face this soon. Her voice faltered, the weight of her words settling heavily in the room. Look, he would never hurt anyone, I contested, though my own resolve began to wane. That belief was increasingly fragile, teetering on the brink where ignorance met reality. A tall doctor, previously quiet, finally spoke, his voice low and tentative. It's not about hurting anyone, but about the things he's done, the mistakes. His choices could ruin him, and if it doesn't stop, others will get hurt. Staring into their eyes, I sensed the urgency in their words, the concern flowing through the room like electric current. It dawned on me then that for every life Jake had saved, there could be one he had unintentionally jeopardized. And if that was the case, what did it mean for our connection? For my belief in him? Do you think he'll listen to me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the enormity of this question weighing heavily on me. Another doctor, older, placed a comforting hand on my shoulder, his grip warm amid the cold fear thrumming through me. You're one of the few he trusts. But you need to be cautious. He can become defensive, even self-destructive. An image flashed through my mind, Jake's gentle smile, the warmth of his touch, and the vulnerability he had only shared with me. But as the memory softened the reality, dread coiled tighter around my heart. They'll try, I replied, though my voice wavered, filled with a mixture of certainty and dread. I have to try. They nodded. A sense of solidarity enveloped us, but it was fleeting. I took a deep breath, my heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty as I left the room. I had to find him. Each step toward his office felt like a leap into the unknown, the ground beneath me shifting as I walked through the tangled thoughts of my mind. Once I reached his office, the door was slightly ajar. I paused, taking a moment to gather my thoughts, wishing desperately for strength. I could do this. I had to reach the part of him that hadn't been consumed by shadow yet. Pushing open the door, I found Jake seated at his desk, his fingers absent-mindedly wrapping and unwrapping the strap of his watch. He looked up, and the moment our eyes locked, the weight of our shared history suspended in the air between us like an unfinished sentence. "Hey," I managed to say, offering a fragile smile. "Hey." The ghost of his usual charm flickered across his features before being swallowed by concern. "What are you doing here? Can we talk?" I asked, my voice shaking from the knowledge I carried, the reality I had to confront. "Sure, but you shouldn't." His voice faded, caught somewhere between relief and worry. "I know. I heard from a couple of your colleagues." I cut in gently. "Jake, they're really worried about you." For a moment, he froze, eyes searching mine as if pleading for a way to escape the inevitable. "You shouldn't have come here. You're too good for this." "Too good for what?" "For caring?" I pressed, moving in closer, desperate to reach him. "Jake, I can't just walk away. You're my friend and so much more." His facade crumbled for a fleeting second, revealing the inner turmoil that swirled beneath the surface. "You don't understand," he began, but the pain in his voice struck me deeper than any words. "Then make me understand," I urged, feeling the wall between us beginning to sway against the torrent of vulnerability. Suddenly, he stood, the chair scraping against the floor sharply. "I can't drag you into this. It's too messy, too dangerous. You need to leave." Now a wave of panic surged through me. "Jake, please don't push me away. I can help you. We can figure this out together." But his expression hardened, eyes brimming with unshed tears, a storm brewing within him. Just as I reached toward him, the door burst open, and there stood a figure I hadn't expected, Sarah. Her shocked gaze flitted between Jake and me, the air thick with unresolved tension. "What's going on?" she demanded, sensing the unraveling drama. My heart sank. The last thing I needed was more complications. In that instant, I realized the precarious ground I was standing on. I'd opened a door, and what lay on the other side could either save Jake or crush us both under the weight of the truth. The look Jake threw my way was an unmistakable mixture of dread and fear, a foreshadowing of the storm that was yet to come. The moment Sarah entered, the air crackled with unspoken words, a heavy silence punctuated only by the sound of Jake's strained breathing. It was as though the world beyond that office ceased to exist. Time stood still, and the enormity of the situation pressed down on all of us like the thick fog of early morning. "Are you two all right?" Sarah's voice trembled slightly, her eyes darting nervously from Jake to me. She had been my ally, my confidant, and yet here she was, a stranger caught in the midst of a tempest brewing just behind those closed doors. Jake swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. "We were just having a conversation," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I could see the conflict etched across his face, the shadows of doubt wrestling with his instinct to shield us both from the truth. "About what?" Sarah pressed, folding her arms defensively as she stepped further into the room. I wished desperately that I could sweep her away, keeping the complexities of our lives contained, but there was no escaping the truth any longer. "About me," Jake finally admitted, his gaze locked onto hers. It was a moment of raw honesty, yet it seemed like a plea for understanding cloaked in desperation. Before I could intervene, Sarah took a step closer to him, her eyes searching his. "What do you mean about you? What's going on?" He turned, raking a hand through his hair, his defenses crumbling. "It's messy, Sarah. I messed up big time." His voice was nothing more than a whisper now, fragile and full of anguish. "And if I don't find a way to fix it," he trailed off, unable to voice the fear that hung like a noose around our hearts. "What have you done?" Her question pierced the tension in the room, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. This was turning into an unveiling of scars, each of us wrestling with shadows. Even as we stood together, it was a moment of clarity. I stepped closer to Jake, my heart pounding in rhythm with the urgency of the moment. "He needs help, Sarah. We all do. This isn't about one mistake. It's about the danger he faces, the danger we all face if we don't confront it together." Jake looked at me, his eyes filled with something more profound than fear. Gratitude? Relief? I was unsure, but my own heart soared a little at the possibility of reaching him amidst the chaos. "Together?" Sarah echoed, skepticism creeping into her tone, as if the very notion of unity was laughable in front of us. "You really think that's enough?" The hurt in her voice caught me off guard. "It has to be. If we don't stand by him now, then who will?" My words were laced with desperation, but they felt like the only choice I had left. I could sense Jake's pain manifesting into a beacon of hope, flickering like a candle fighting against the storms of trepidation. And oh, she's right, Jake interjected, his voice regaining some strength as he wrestled with his emotions. I don't want to drag you both into my mess. You don't know what you're asking to untangle. You don't know how deep this goes. Then tell us, I urged, my own courage bubbling up. We can't help if we don't know the whole story. For a moment, he hesitated, eyes darting between Sarah and me, unsure of the weight of his own truth. I've been involved in something I can't control, he whispered, each word dragging him deeper into a well of despair. And it's worse than I thought. It's not just about me anymore. There are consequences. Lives, maybe even ours. That's why we need to confront it, I urged, feeling the tremor of fear and solidarity intertwining in the space between us. What if we face it together? You don't have to be alone in this. He took a deep breath, the warmth of my words seemingly inviting, but also frightening him just the same. It's not just my life I'm worried about. He looked to the ground, shame twisting his features. It's yours too. I care too much to let you get hurt. That's not your decision to make, I said firmly. It's our choice to stand with you. You have to trust us, Jake. In that tense silence, I could feel the divide closing, yet uncertainty loomed like a dark shadow, threatening to engulf the moment. Maybe I should go. Sarah's voice quivered as she took a step back, her brow furrowing with the weight of the revelation. No, I exclaimed, reaching out to her instinctively, my grip firm. We need to face this together. If he falls, we all fall with him. And if we're going to save him, we have to do it as one. A flicker of understanding crossed Jake's face, but the shadows were still heavy around him. But the truth, it might change everything between us. I can't bear that. Then let's face it, I insisted, a raw emotion threading my voice. Tell us what you've done, Jake. We're right here with you, every step of the way. No more shadows. He sank back into his chair, fingers gripping the edge as if it were the only thing anchoring him to this reality. I got mixed up, he murmured, his gaze dropping. With the wrong crowd. I thought I could use my connections to help people, but another breath, a deepening fracture in his facade. I've made deals that involve things I never thought I'd be a part of. Like what? Sarah barely murmured, the tremor of realization dancing through her voice. With drugs, with finances. I thought I could manage it. But now there are people I owe and they don't care about the consequences, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper, desperation creeping into every word. I felt my stomach drop, my heart racing with fear. Jake, suddenly, there was a knock on the door, abrupt and jarring. It echoed ominously in the tension-filled room. Jake, you in there? A familiar voice called out, sending shockwaves through me. I recognized the tone before the door swung open to reveal one of the last people I wanted to see. Derek, the very embodiment of the underworld Jake had been trying to escape. That I knew you'd be around. Pretty boy, Derek sneered, stepping into the office with a confident swagger. His glance turned appraising, his eyes flitting between us. You're in over your head, aren't you? My heart sank as I met Jake's terrified eyes, the finality of our situation crashing down like the tide. We were standing on the precipice of chaos, and I knew at that moment that the stakes had shifted irrevocably. The battle for Jake's life wasn't just about secrets anymore. It was about survival. Derek, get out, Jake said, steadying himself with an unexpected strength. Not until we talk, Derek replied, a sly grin spreading across his face. Behind him, the doorway seemed to loom larger, dark and unyielding. That moment suspended time and space, robbing me of breath. The choices we made now loomed larger than ever, every word capable of sparking uncertainty or releasing the chains binding Jake from the light. Jake, I whispered, my heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. We're going to get through this, he promised, though both of us knew the impending storm could shatter everything we had fought for. And for an instant, I believed him until I felt the first cold tendrils of doubt wrapping around my heart, the stark realization that not everyone could be saved, and that choices born from darkness could seep into every corner of our lives, threatening to pull us under. The room was thick with tension, and Derek's presence brought with it an oppressive uncertainty. I could see Jake's features taut with dread, as if the weight of his past, once tucked into the shadows, had burst forth, clawing its way to the surface with every tick of the clock. What are you doing here? Jake demanded, his voice a mixture of defiance and fear, an oddly potent blend that shook me. I wished I could reassure him that we would emerge from this trial unscathed, but I wasn't certain of anything anymore. Derek shrugged, his cheeky smile a direct contrast to the gravity of our circumstances. Just checking on my favorite project. You know how it is when the stakes get high, he remarked, swaggering closer, an all-too-familiar predator entering our fragile space. Sarah shifted uncomfortably beside me, and for a fleeting moment, I could see her heart racing, feel the escalating pulse of uncertainty radiating from her. This isn't a game, Derek, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The confidence she had once exuded seemed to wane in the face of Derek's arrogance. Not a game. Oh, darling, it's a very important game, he said, casting a glance back at her, his interest stirred. But it looks like Pretty Boy needs some motivation to play by the rules. Too bad for him. I'm not feeling very generous today. Jake's knuckles turned white as he gripped the arm of the chair, and I witnessed another side of him, the desperation mingling with rage. You don't get to decide what I do anymore, Derek. I'm done with your bullshit, he spat, each word a fierce plea for control and freedom. Done? Derek's laughter echoed like a sinister melody, taunting us. Oh, you think you can just walk away? He'll be damned if I let you. His laughter settled in the corners of the room like a chill. Jake, please, I interrupted, unsure of what might follow Derek's threats, but feeling an urgent need to protect him from both his past and present. We can figure this out. But we need a plan. Enough of this sentimental crap. Derek interjected, lacing his voice with contempt. The choices you make, Jake, aren't a matter of figuring out anymore. You're in deep, and you know it. It was a reality. I had been desperately trying to shield Jake from an abyss that whispered of far more danger than I had ever imagined. You think this is about you, Derek? I shot back, the fire behind my voice coming forth without restraint. This is about all of us. There are lives at stake here, including his. Lives? Derek snorted, his demeanor turning predatory. You're naive if you think that matters in this world. You're in a game where mercy is a luxury no one can afford. He turned his gaze back to Jake, eyes narrowing. And you, Pretty Boy, have a debt to pay. The tremor in my heart crescendoed while I observed Jake's expression crumbling beneath the weight of his past. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice cracking, a scared boy hiding behind a facade of bravado. Derek leaned in closer, his demeanor shifting from smug to sinister. Let's just say there are expectations. You're not just going to walk away and forget about everything you owe. They'll give you a chance to settle your debts if you're willing to work for me again. I could feel Jake's body tense, and there was a flicker of panic in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. What had Derek dragged him into? What did he mean by work for me again? No, I asserted strongly, casting a resolute glance at Jake. You won't go back to that. You've come too far to lose yourself again. Derek chuckled, the sound mocking and sharp. You think you can keep him from me? The past has a way of surfacing, sweetheart, and I'm sure he remembers fondly the thrill of the dark. It's addictive. Trust me, addictive. Jake croaked, as though the very word struck a raw nerve. That's not who I am anymore. Then prove it, Derek taunted, raising an eyebrow. Otherwise, enjoy your little fairy tale while it lasts. But we both know what happens when you run with wolves. They'll catch up to you eventually. Get out, Jake said firmly, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. The question is, what happens when I don't? Derek challenged, drawing a step closer, his shadow looming larger over Jake, threatening to swallow the fragile remain of resolve. Jake, don't, I cried, trying to reach for him, wishing to pull him back from the edge. You don't have to listen to him. We can go to the police. We can. He blurted, his eyes wide with fear, and then, quickly, he regained his composure, though it felt a fragile mask over a well of sorrow. I can handle this. I just need some time. Before I could react, Jake's words hung in the air like an echo that he would attempt to tackle Derek and whatever fate awaited him alone. I could not fathom what compelled him to think he could take this on without us, and my heart raced as dread settled heavily in my stomach. Derek shrugged, a knowing smirk playing at his lips. Time. That's all we really have, Jake. Tick-tock. With a wave, he turned, his presence lingering like a festering wound. But remember, he'll be watching. Very closely. Once he was gone, the weight of silence fell over us, thick and suffocating. I could see the uncertainty swirling in Jake's eyes, fear morphing into guilt, and something more profound. The thought that his predicament was only beginning to unravel sent actual pain lancing through the core of me. "Jake," I began, but he raised a hand, stopping me in my tracks. "Don't," he whispered, and all at once, I could sense the battle raging within him. "I put you both in danger just by being honest. You should walk away while you still can. No. You're not going to shut us out." My heart pounded, every syllable laced with urgency. "I won't let you push us away. We're here for you. We'll figure this out together." His gaze fell, shadows deepening across his face. "Together?" he echoed softly, frustration etched in every line of his expression. "I'm afraid together means dragging you down with me, and I can't bear the thought of that." Each word hit me with the force of a wave, tangled in the realization of how fragile life moments could be. "Jake, we made a choice to stand by you. Don't take that away from us," Sarah interjected, stepping out of her silent turmoil, her voice low but steady. His eyes flickered with something else, pain, anger, but beneath it, a flicker of hope. "What if I can't keep you safe? What if I drag you both into my nightmare?" His voice trembled as his biggest fear unraveled before us, laid bare in stark honesty. "Then we'll face it together," I insisted, and in that moment, I could see a glimmer of what had once brought us joy, a fleeting reminder of how once, among laughter and dreams, we were invulnerable. But reality was here, a bitter pill on the table between us all, and none of us were ready to swallow it. "And if we're too late?" he whispered, desperation shaping his words. "What if it's all too much?" Before I could respond, a screech of tires echoed outside, cutting through our fragile bubble. My stomach twisted at the sound, every instinct screaming that something terrible was about to unfold. "We have to go," I said, urgency rising in my throat. "Please, Jake, just trust us. You need to let us help you, whatever it is." Jake looked toward the window, his face paling, and I realized that the encroaching darkness wasn't just from within, it was coming for him. For us. Our moment of hope felt tenuous as dread curled its fingers around my heart. And just as he opened his mouth to respond, we heard "eat" a loud, crashing sound followed by furious shouting just outside the office. My breath caught as the implications ricocheted through my mind. Jake's expression shifted, understanding dawning in his eyes. "No, it can't be," he gasped, the blood draining from his face. My heart sank at the realization. Whatever fate awaited us, it was arriving faster than I could comprehend. In that moment, as adrenaline surged and fear gripped us all, I understood this was no longer just a battle for Jake's soul, it was a fight for our very survival. The reckoning was upon us, and it promised to challenge everything we believed in. Little did we know that crash on the road of fate would change all of our destinies in ways we could never anticipate. The sound of shattering glass pierced the heavy atmosphere, snapping our attention toward the narrow window. My heart pounded as I exchanged glances with Jake and Sarah, the three of us suspended in a shared moment of dread. Whatever was outside wasn't a simple interruption. It was a tempest that had come looking for Jake and us. "Stay low," I murmured, instinct kicking in as I instinctively moved toward the door. Jake followed, his steps a frantic whisper against the carpet. Sarah lingered behind, her eyes wide with fear that matched my own. "What is happening?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising chaos outside. "I don't know," I replied, barely managing to sound composed. "But we can't stay here." We edged toward the door, Jake reaching for the handle as though afraid it might vanish. His fingers trembled. He turned to me, hesitation flickering in his gaze. "What do we do if it's him? If it's Derek?" The mere mention of Derek loomed over us like a storm cloud, darkening any inklings of hope I had managed to cling to. "We face him. Together," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We had braced ourselves for a confrontation, he and I, battling the phantoms of his past. But this felt different. The stakes had escalated terribly, and I feared the consequences, even if I would follow him into that peril. That a muffled shout echoed outside, crackling like a breaking dam, and Jake's eyes locked on mine, a silent plea for assurance. I nodded subtly, and we pushed the door open just enough to peer into the dim hallway, a buzzing tension lingering in the air. The first sight made my breath hitch. There stood Derek, but not alone. Flanking him were two men, faces masked and expressions fierce. As if flung into the jaws of the beast, Jake and I seemed to still the air around us, suspended in disbelief at the grim scenario unfolding before our eyes. "They came for you, Jake," Derek jeered, his voice a dark silk that wrapped around the tension, weaving it tighter. Anger flared in the depths of my gut, but I couldn't move. "Do you really think you could escape this? That you could dismantle the web I've built? I should have known better than to think you could walk away." Before Jake could say anything, I pushed against the door frame, every instinct screaming to protect him. "You don't have to do this, Derek," I shouted, knowing full well the futility of reason against a man like him. The soft, whimpering accusations of my heart were powerless now. His eyes danced with a manic thrill. "Oh, but I do. You see, Jake was always meant to be part of this world. And you," he pointed accusingly, "you're the distraction that could ultimately ruin him. Isn't that right, pretty boy?" I longed to fight back, to lash out, but confidence buckled under the weight of reality. This was no longer just a game of wills. It felt like we were at the precipice, gazing into the abyss, our destinies intertwining in a twisted fate. Jake's voice, deceptively calm, broke through the tension. "What do you want, Derek?" The inquiry hung in the air as if it might break the dam of the tempest, offering a chance to slow the impending chaos. "He wants your obedience," a voice chimed in, a newcomer standing at the far end of the hallway. It was a woman, her icy demeanor even colder than the dim light flickering above. "And I'm here to collect." Glancing behind me, I quietly recognized her, another ghost from Jake's troubled past, shrouded in mystery. "Sarah," I whispered, instinctively pulling her back toward my side. Derek's laughter echoed down the corridor. "Oh, you met her? Lovely, isn't she? They have a way of getting what they want, don't they?" "What does she want?" Jake demanded, eyes darting between the newcomers, dread rippling through him like a live wire. "Only to lend a helping hand." The woman smiled, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, an unsettling glint in her eye. "To remind you of your choices, Jake. Seems it's time for you to stop avoiding the truth." The questions danced in my head, colliding under the weight of those unspoken words. Help or manipulation? The signs flashed red like warning beacons as an icy sweat trickled down my back. "What truth?" Jake pressed. Derek stepped forward, the sinister joy apparent in his smile. "The truth about what you owe, Jake, what you've kept hidden from them. That's what we're here to remind you. Your past isn't done with you yet." I felt Jake tense, the confession looming over him, a chilling reminder of what he had tried so hard to bury. "No," he whispered, as if uttering the word could change reality. But the woman stepped closer, and the cruel tilt of her smile made my skin crawl. "It's time to choose, Jake. You can step back into your history, or you can face the consequences of your choices." Silence hovered like a noose, closing in around us. I could sense Jake's turmoil. The clash between who he had been and who he wanted to be raged silently within him. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about us. "What do you want me to do?" His voice shook but bore a current of defiance. The woman leaned in, and I almost stepped forward, ready to stop her from coming closer, ready to protect him at any cost. But I could only watch, helpless, as the threads of their stories entangled further. "What's behind all this, Derek?" I shouted, desperation escaping my lips. "Do you really think you can use Jake as a pawn in your twisted game? For once, you're thinking, sweetheart. But the reality is you're not in control here," he replied, amusement evident in his tone. "Only Jake can decide what he wants. He either takes his place with us or watches you both suffer for his hesitation." The truth hung there like a guillotine poised to fall, each word a lethal promise. I felt hope slipping through my fingers as dread settled in its place. And just as Jake opened his mouth to respond, a sharp crack and then silence echoed down the hallway. The realization hit, icy and biting, that no matter what answers we sought, darkness was closing in, and we were running out of time. In that moment, I could see it in his eyes, a flicker of resolve mixed with an overwhelming fear as he forged toward that precipice. I could sense his struggle within to push back darkness, even as it loomed around us. But then the ground shifted, and just as everything felt poised for calamity, a flash of bright light erupted from beyond the doorway, illuminating our faces as a blaring siren wailed in the distance. And then it all fell apart. The siren's wail sliced through the tension like a scythe, slicing away the folds of the nightmare that loomed before us. In that blinding moment, The mask of invincibility worn by Derek and the woman cracked, revealing an unexpected vulnerability. It was a reminder that even the most formidable adversaries could be startled, shaken by the tremors of the unexpected "Go!" I shouted, seizing the chance as chaos briefly unfurled the tension in the air. Jake's eyes darted to me. Uncertainty and raw panic wrestled for dominance on his face. "Now," I urged, physically nudging him toward the far end of the corridor, where the back exit lay hidden behind a long-abandoned janitor's closet. But Jake seemed frozen, entrapped in an agonizing choice. "My past," he started, every syllable a weighted anchor pulling him deeper. "Your past doesn't dictate your future," I protested, fear clawing at my heart as I looked back toward Derek and the woman, who appeared uncoiled but ready to strike once more. "Right now, let's just get out of here." The siren grew louder, a frantic echo that sparked urgency into our veins. The two men beside Derek twisted their heads, their collective excitement morphing into frustration, the glint of their masks betraying their intentions. They began to advance, intent on silencing the noise that threatened to shatter their control. Without a second thought, I yanked Jake's arm, and finally, he broke free from his paralysis. The two of us raced toward the janitor's closet, its door creaking ominously as we threw it open, praying it wouldn't trap us but would instead offer an escape route from this nightmare. The cluttered interior held its own type of shadows, but we had no choice. "Watch the door," I whispered, glancing back as it swung almost shut behind us. Derek cursed, rage coloring his words as he barked orders at his men, his attention diverted, tightening the window of our opportunity. Jake and I pressed ourselves against the narrow wall, our breaths mingling in frantic gasps as we fought to quiet the pounding of our hearts, struck anew by the weight of the past that refused to let go. "It's not just Derek," Jake whispered, anguish coating his voice like honey. "How did they find me, Lila? I thought I was safe." A dull throb replaced the panic in my chest. "You are more than what you've done. You can't let him manipulate you," I assured him, searching his eyes for some glimpse of the hope I desperately wanted to believe in. "We just need to find a way to confront it together, to break free. But what if there's more?" he murmured, the doubt that had been buried forced back into the light. "What if they know secrets I haven't even remembered yet?" In that moment, the claustrophobia of time and space magnified. The past felt like a ghost waiting at the edge of our periphery, claws poised to drag him back into the abyss. "We'll find out together," I promised, squeezing his hand with a fierce determination. I needed him to believe it. We needed to believe it. "This isn't the end for us, Jake. It's just another chapter." A crash echoed outside the closet, followed by Derek's furious shouting that sliced through the air. Fragments of our moment crumbled under the pressure, and for a heartbeat, despair seeped in like a threadbare quilt, clinging to my skin. Then, against all odds, there was a knock on the door. Soft, almost timid, it suggested an unexpected Presencian anomaly amid the frightening clamor. "Lila?" A voice came through, tentative yet familiar. It was Sarah. "Are you in there? Please, we need to move." Relief washed over me like a tide, momentarily banishing the shadows that threatened to suffocate. But the question loomed: how had she escaped? Had she truly managed to evade the chaos outside? "Open the door," Derek's voice boomed, a dark growl that sent shivers crisscrossing my spine. "I know you're in there. Do we trust her?" Jake whispered, uncertainty flashing across his features. Hope flickered, but fear still danced in the room, coiling tighter around us. "I am not sure we have a choice," I whispered back, glancing toward the door, my heart pounding louder than ever at the precarious line between safety and betrayal. In that moment, another crack reverberated in the stillness, and Derek's voice rose with fury, splintering the air with vibrations of intimidation that left us paralyzed. "Lila, you're making a mistake." The dim light angled in from the doorframe, revealing the silhouette of Sarah, poised on the verge of escape or entrapment. Was she a lifeline or another dark thread stitched into our fate? "Trust me," she said, each word forged of desperation but laced with an undercurrent of resolve, followed by a soft click as the door handle turned. And in that moment, as we teetered on the brink of decision, adrenaline surged through my veins. We were bound by fear and hope, walking the stark and uncertain line between safety and despair. As the door creaked open just enough to reveal Sarah's anxious face framed by shadows, everything swayed, balancing precariously at the edge of our fate. Little did we know the revelation of trust would come at a cost we had yet to comprehend, a price that threatened to shatter everything we believed to be true. The siren wailed on, relentless and haunting, as we prepared ourselves to breach the door into the unknown. The door parted just wide enough for Sarah to slip through, her anxious eyes darting between Jake and me. In that vulnerable moment suspended in the air, my heart swelled with clenched hope and a twinge of apprehension. Would she offer solace, or was she merely a player in this tangled web of fear? "Come on, we need to go," she urged, her voice a whisper carried by urgency, glancing back at the encroaching darkness lined by the silhouettes of Derek's men. The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around us as if it wished to keep us trapped in that moment forever. We emerged from the shadows of the closet, stepping into the uncertain terrain of the hallway. With every step, the weight of our choices seemed to push back, but Sarah's determined pull was a glimmer of light guiding us through the murky abyss. "What happened? How did you get away?" I asked, glancing back just in time to catch the flicker of guilt in her eyes. "It's a long story," she replied, her voice low, "but we can't discuss it here. We need to move before a loud crash echoed down the hall, silencing her." My heart thundered as I instinctively reached for Jake's hand, squeezing it tightly as the three of us darted toward a side exit at the end of the corridor. The sound of pounding footsteps grew closer, the reckoning of Derek's fury looming like an ominous cloud ready to unleash chaos. "What do you know about them?" Jake pressed, his voice barely above a whisper, straining to overcome his fear. I could see him trembling, not just from the adrenaline, but from the weight of his past sneaking back into the present. "More than I want to," Sarah replied, casting a furtive glance over her shoulder. "But you're not safe here, not with him looking for you. There are things you have to learn, but we need to escape first." That I could see a flicker of understanding igniting in Jake's eyes, but doubt hung heavily in the atmosphere. "What do you mean, things we have to learn? Sarah, what are you hiding?" Sarah paused for a moment. Her expression crumpled, as if she were wrestling with how much she could reveal. "I'm not entirely sure you grasp how far his reach extends. You both have been part of something much bigger, something I was also drawn into." The fear that clawed at my gut twisted further as a realization set in. We were part of a narrative larger than ourselves, and we were merely characters at the mercy of a writer whose pen flowed with violence. We burst through a set of double doors and found ourselves in the parking garage. The dim light cast eerie shadows across the concrete, and my pulse quickened as uncertainty poured in. "Where's your car?" I demanded as we maneuvered through the maze of vehicles, scanning for anything that resembled safety. "My old car is parked here, but it's not an easy ride," Sarah murmured, picking up her pace, her breath just a little heavier with every word. "I swear to you, it's not just about Derek. The others, they're involved too. If they find us, we'll have no chance." Another crash reverberated in the distance, and my heart sank as dread settled deep within me like a stone. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running headlong into something far darker than what lay behind us. "Wait," Jake interrupted, spinning to face Sarah. "Are you saying there are more people involved? More people like Derek?" "Yes," she confirmed, fear etched across her features. "And tonight is just the beginning of it. You both have to trust me." Her voice cracked, revealing a vulnerability I had never seen before. "I know things that can help us fight back, but we need to move quickly." Before I could respond, headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the rear end of the garage. A black SUV rolled around the corner, its engine growling like a storm, and the unmistakable silhouette within sent a chill down my spine. "It's them," I shouted. "We have to hurry." In that moment, a flicker of desperation ignited in Sarah's eyes. "This way." She turned sharply, leading us toward a door at the far end of the garage. "The service exit is on the other side. Get to my car, and I'll explain everything on." The way that we bolted toward the door, adrenaline fueling our flight. As we reached it, I turned to steal a glance back, every instinct screaming that we were not alone. Derek's men were close behind us, shadows creeping like vultures closing in on their prey. At the last moment, I caught sight of one figure breaking free from the pack, a tall man with wild hair and piercing eyes. His gaze locked onto Jake, recognition sparking like a match in dry hay. "Jake," he bellowed, his voice a wretched call laden with familiarity. "You can't run from this. You can't run from who you are." A grip of icy fear slithered down my back as the world hovered, momentarily suspended, at the edge of revelation. Jake's body trembled beside me, and in that heartbeat, I realized the past was racing to confront him once more, demanding answers that could unravel not just his world, but every fiber of the fragile bond we shared. As we flew through the door, the fade of light behind us was swallowed by darkness, leaving us in a disorienting void of uncertainty. I clutched Jake's hand tighter, fighting against the encroaching noise, the rising tide of his history. But the weight of that revelation lingered like a storm cloud, and in the throbbing silence that followed, I knew we had only just scratched the surface of a battle that threatened to consume us all. With a roar of an engine reverberating through the garage, we surged forward into the unknown, the explicit threat of Derek and his men looming over us like a fractured promise we were not yet free. The world outside felt different, like walking between two realms, one drenched in chaos and the other painted in fragile hope. As the engine of Sarah's car sputtered to life, I caught Jake's profile in the dim light, an unsettling mask of fear and uncertainty etched across his features. The roar of the engine filled the silence that threatened to consume us, but it did little to drown out the turmoil brewing within me. "Get in," Sarah urged, her eyes darting toward the shadows of the garage, nerves fraying at the edges. I watched as she glanced over her shoulder, battling with the allure of their approaching footsteps that echoed louder with each throbbing heartbeat. There was urgency in her voice, a sense of desperation mingled with fierce determination. As we tumbled into the back seat, our bodies instinctively huddling together as if we could merge our fears into a single fortress. The night seemed to congeal around us, thick with unspoken words that lingered like a specter. "Do you know him?" I whispered to Jake, fighting to keep the tremor from my voice. He clenched his jaw, his eyes locked on the rearview mirror, where the shadows were beginning to move closer. "I don't know. I'm not sure. I've seen him before." There was a heaviness in his words, each syllable shaped by remnants of a past he desperately wished to forget. "We'll talk about this," I said softly, my heart aching to reach out and fix whatever was unraveling within him. But the scowl on his face remained, unyielding, as if he were battling against forces far beyond my understanding. Panic bubbled just beneath the surface, threatening to spill over like a tide of emotion that would sweep us all into the abyss. "Hold on," Sarah shouted, her foot pressing down on the accelerator, jolting us forward. The tires screeched against the concrete floor as we burst out into the open air. The world outside slammed into us, wind whipping through the window, scraps of leaves dancing past us, the city lights flickering like distant stars. For a moment, I closed my eyes, grounding myself in the sensation, the fleeting freedom. Yet the pulse of fear tightened my chest. "Where are we going?" I asked, peeling my eyes open to see Sarah's determination manifesting in every shift of her body behind the wheel. "Anywhere but here," she muttered, her focus unwavering. "We need to find a safe place to talk. I have contacts, I'll call them." The car jolted as Sarah navigated the winding streets, but Jake's gaze lingered out the window, lost in the haze of racing thoughts. "You don't have to explain everything right now, Sarah," I said, aching to ease the tension weaving its way through our makeshift team. "Just keep us safe." A knot twisted in her throat as she nodded, though uneasiness still shadowed her eyes. "You have to understand, the people involved in this right now, they think you're still pawns. But they won't wait long. They'll figure out we're gone, and they'll come hunting. It was them, wasn't it?" Jake's voice cracked as he finally turned to confront Sarah. "The ones after me. They're a part of what happened in my past. I can feel it. You can't hide from the truth forever." Her grip tightened on the steering wheel, the weight of untruths settling thick in the air. "I'm not trying to hide anything. Suddenly, a rumble of engines behind us shattered our fragile moment of escape. Jake's breath hitched, eyes widening as he caught sight of a convoy tailing us. Black SUVs that cut through the night like hawks on the hunt. "Derek!" he shouted, a mixture of horror and realization sweeping over him. "This isn't just random. They're coming for me." In that instant, I felt the world around us shift, The phone in my pocket vibrated like a heart-beaten anonymous text message, cold and jarring. "We know you're with them. Make one wrong move, and we'll expose everything." I fumbled for my phone, heart racing, but before I could read it again, a sudden jolt sent us careening sideways, Sarah swerving to avoid the tailing convoy. Rows of cars blurred past us in flashes of neon and steel, and it felt as though gravity itself were trying to rip us apart. "Stay down," Sarah shouted, panic threading through her words, and I instinctively ducked, dragging Jake with me, his eyes shimmering with something indefinable: fear, anger, confusion. From beneath the cover of the seat, I caught a glimpse of the approaching vehicles, their headlights piercing through the night, illuminating faces of men I didn't recognize, yet curiously felt the weight of familiarity. "Sarah, we need a plan. They won't stop until they have us," Jake said, his voice raw with urgency. "I am trying," she screamed, glancing back once more, determination mingling with desperation in her tone. "But I can't let them take you, Jake. It's not just you they want." My heart sank as I grasped the underlying truth of her words. A dark realization gripped me. We weren't just running because of Jake's past. We were entangled in something larger, something that wanted us silenced, erased from the narrative thread that wound tighter with each passing moment. And just then, like a crescendo building to an overwhelming climax, the car lurched violently as another vehicle slammed into us, metal shrieking against metal. A bolt of pain shot through me, breaking the tenuous thread of hope. We were no longer just on the run, we were caught in a deadly game where only the truth could set us free. Yet the truth was shrouded in shadows that seemed determined to swallow us whole. I looked at Jake, the shimmer of vulnerability fading behind fear darkening his blue gaze. It hit me. We'd been holding on to fragments of each other for safety, yet the more we pulled at the threads, the more we risked unraveling our fragile connection amidst the chaos. We were running, yes, but from whom? And what would we find when the dust settled the way forward, lined with secrets far heavier than the burdens we carried? In that moment, everything felt poised on the brink of a heart-wrenching revelation. And before I could sort through the uncertainty, another surge of force slammed us from behind. The world twisted, pain blurred the edges of my vision, and I braced myself for the oncoming darkness that rippled ever closer. The impact jolted through the car like a tempest, tearing through the tenuous grasp I had on certainty. Time slowed as the world outside spiraled into a vortex of chaos. Metal shrieked, glass shattered, and the echo of our screams merged with the cacophony, drowning out the rush of fear that coursed through my veins. Jake's eyes met mine, a tumult of emotions swirling beneath the surfaceous storm of fear and regret reflected back at me. As the car spun, I felt a visceral connection tether us together. In that moment, I understood that our bond had grown deeper than the chaos surrounding us. It had woven into something raw and unbreakable. "Hold on," Sarah shouted, her voice like a fragile lifeline amidst the upheaval. But just as quickly as the words left her mouth, another collision sent us spiraling into the unexpected. A reckoning, it seemed, was upon us as the car finally skidded to a halt. My world blurred for a brief second before sharp clarity rushed back. Adrenaline coursed through me, ringing in my ears. The very reality of gravity and fear gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. I blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the shadows fogging my vision. The cold steel of fear gripped my bones as I sat still, wrapped tightly within the remnants of the chaos. But chaos wasn't done with us yet. Dark figures erupted from the convoy, efficient and menacing silhouettes, as they approached armed with authority and intent, their shadows extending far beyond mere darkness. I felt a tremor of dread claw its way through my heart. Thoughts swirled, tangled in the whirlwind of unanswered questions. What did they want? What would they do to us? And for Jake, it was all far too real, a return to the unshakable past he had tried so desperately to escape. "Get out." Derek's voice rang through the heavy air, charged with a predatory drawl. "This ends now, Jake." Fear coiled tighter around my heart as I turned to Jake, his expression now a tempest of abandonment, self-loathing, and raw vulnerability, emotions that flittered through his gaze with depths uncharted. "I can't go back," he whispered desperately. "Not again." I reached for him, gripping his arm tighter. You don't have to face this alone. A harsh laugh interrupted me, cutting through the air like ice. But he does have to face it, Derek snarled, closing in with a predator's confidence. You think you can save him from the consequences of his choices? You're just a distraction, Lila. A way for him to avoid reality. Stop. Jake burst out, his voice echoing with newfound conviction, but it was met with a cruel grin, one that danced on Derek's lips. You'll regret stepping back into the light, Jake. You're not equipped for this. You'll never be free. His words hung in the air like a shroud, cloaking everything else and intensifying the suffocating fear. And as Jake's eyes flared with anguish, the truth of his past threatened to rise again like a monster from the depths of oblivion. But before the storm could pull him in, I turned to him, urgency infusing my voice. You're not defined by what you've done. This isn't who you are. The conviction surged within me, glowing like an ember in the dark. His gaze flickered, momentary confusion flashing across his features, and as Derek continued to draw closer, the urgency escalated. You have to fight, Jake. You've come so far from that life. We can break free from this cycle. Fight? Derek spat back, mirth twisting into rage. He's not a hero, sweetheart. He's nothing but a coward trying to convince the world he can outrun the darkness he created. I in that heartbeat. I felt the ground shift beneath us, and those words trailed behind me like shadows. Coward. A label he carried in his heart. But he wasn't a coward, not now, not when he had the chance to rewrite his ending. Jake locked eyes with me, and I could see within him a flicker of something, an ember igniting amidst years of torment. You don't get it, he retorted, his voice a lowering growl as he met Derek's gaze, the sadness morphing into something bold and raw. You don't know what I'll fight for, what I have to lose. Maybe I can't reclaim the past, but I refuse to let it dictate my future. Not anymore. Jackpot. Derek howled, mockingly throwing his arms wide, basking in the defiance, epiphany seemingly sparking through the darkness. It's your choice, then. But remember, if you challenge the darkness, it'll come back tenfold and take everything you love. What I love. Jake echoed, anger brewing with every word. You don't know anything about love, Derek. You are just a coward hiding behind power. The words hung like a challenge in the air, and my heart swelled, filled with hope as I saw Jake brave the torrential storm gathered around him. He wasn't alone anymore. We were all in this together, a triangle of courage forged against the weight of inevitability. Back away, Jake commanded, his voice rising above the noise. Shadows curled at his feet, pulling on the darkness he had known. But now, control was shifting. A silence blanketed the asphalt, broken only by the echoes of Derek's laughter, the final vestige of fear he wielded over us. Cowards face the darkness, he retorted, and heroes face the truth. Without warning, as if the very fabric of the universe had been tugged, another vehicle cruised in, bringing with it an unfamiliar chill that swirled swiftly through the air. A car came to an abrupt halt, the kind of mobile support neither of us had expected. Two figures emerged from the dark, shadowed by light and purpose, the kind of presence that sparked recognition beyond any understanding. Jake, a woman shouted, and I caught a glimpse of her fierce determination before the chaos threatened to drown out the world around us. Run. The urgency in her voice cut through the swelling tensions, striking a match to hope. In the swirl of unexpected allies and childhood fears, I felt a renewed sense of purpose flourish within our fragile group. That's it, I said suddenly to Jake, desperate to solidify the bond we had forged amidst the flames of our confrontation. We fight, but we fight smart. If we don't all trust in each other and face this together, we lose everything. Jake turned to me, sorrow and vulnerability lying in the space where courage dwelled. I can't lose you, he whispered. The weight of those words filled the air, igniting a roar of determination in my chest. Then let's fight, I declared, my heart swelling with unity, ready to face revelations we had yet to comprehend, while readying ourselves to challenge the darkness together. I reached out and placed my hand over Jake's, his skin warm against mine, and in that moment, it felt as if time settled briefly, wrapped in a cocoon of strength that transcended the shadows lurking just outside. Let's end this, he breathed, a tension forming around his shoulders easing as he took a step toward the impending storm, our hearts bound together like fire meeting wind. And with that, we moved, as an unwavering force. The intertwining horrors of our past wrestled with every step, but this time, we would not be claimed by fear. We were ready to face the reckoning that wove through our lives, prepared to uncover the truth that intertwined our fates forever. And in this, we found the unequivocal strength we needed, the power to rewrite not only our stories, but the way we faced each daunting moment. As we surged forward, a final thought echoed amidst the rising tempest. Sometimes it takes the darkest depths to ignite our truest light, the light we now carried together, driving us into the unknown with unwavering courage.